The champagne glass halted midway to my lips when my sister Olivia's voice sliced clean through the hum of dinner chatter. "Cheers to our tragic 30-year-old sister who still rents," she declared, lifting her glass high so all 43 relatives could hear her mockery. Laughter exploded around the private dining hall of Westbrook House, bouncing off polished walls and marble floors. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest, each beat growing louder until it drowned out everything else. The elegant salmon fillet on my plate blurred as a flush crept up my neck, spreading to my face. The chandelier above scattered cruel shards of light that matched. The sharp looks aimed in my direction. None of them knew that the same woman they were mocking had been financing their comfortable lives for the past 5 years. Every inheritance payment, each trust fund transfer, every lucky bonus they'd ever received from Grandma's estate, all of it had come from accounts I managed. My name is Rachel, and I'm 30 years old, a literary archivist by profession, and this is how I finally made my family see me. Naturally, the venue had been Olivia's idea. She'd chosen the most extravagant private room Westbrook House had to offer: crystal chandeliers, linen tablecloths, panoramic views of the Manhattan skyline. I watched her swirl her champagne, bubbles rising in golden spirals, champagne that unknowingly I had paid for. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was spending my money to ridicule me for being poor. "So," Olivia continued, voice dripping with practiced cruelty, 30 years old, still renting that tiny apartment, still single, still at that, what's it called again? That library thing?" "I'm a literary archivist," I murmured, slicing through my overpriced salmon with care. "Right," she said with a laugh. "You play with dusty old books while the rest of us contribute something real to society." She waved her manicured hand toward the table, toward cousins, aunts and uncles, all of whom had, in recent years, experienced miraculous strokes of financial fortune. "Look at Tyler," she went on. 3 properties now. Aunt Diane's boutique is booming. Even Kyle managed to launch that tech startup. Tyler shifted in his seat, unable to meet my eyes. He knew exactly where his funding had come from, though he'd never dare admit it aloud. "Some people are just born renters," Uncle Frank grunted, his words slurred by bourbon. "Nothing wrong with that, Rachel. Somebody's got to stay at the bottom for the rest of us to rise." Olivia's grin widened. "Exactly. Though sometimes I wonder what Mom and Dad would think. They gave us everything, and I've built an empire while you're still—" She tilted her head, pretending to search for the word. "Stagnant." That one hit its target cleanly. Our parents had died 7 years ago in a car accident, leaving behind what the family believed was a modest estate. What they didn't realize was that Dad had been a genius investor, and Mom's hobby, collecting rare manuscripts, had quietly built a small fortune. Their will was precise, private, and entrusted entirely to me. Everything was left in my name, with instructions to provide for the family as I deemed fair. And I had. Quietly, generously, anonymously. Olivia's luxury fitness chain, her so-called empires, had been saved from bankruptcy 3 separate times by mysterious investors. Uncle Frank's gambling debts had disappeared thanks to an administrative error. Kyle's student loans had been wiped clean just before he received an anonymous grant for his tech company. Every person at that table, every one of them laughing at me now, was thriving on the money they thought came from luck or legacy, money that had always been mine. "You know what?" Olivia said suddenly, standing with a tipsy wobble. "Let's raise a glass to Rachel. Proof that not everyone needs to make it in life. Some people exist so the rest of us can feel better about our choices." 42 glasses rose into the air, glittering under the chandelier. And I smiled. My glass stayed untouched on the table while something deep inside me finally broke after years of quiet endurance. The sharp tang of iron filled my mouth, and only then did I realize I'd bitten the inside of my cheek hard enough to draw blood. "Thank you for the memories," I said evenly, though my chest burned as if set aflame. "Memories?" Olivia scoffed, tossing her hair back with a laugh. Oh, sweetheart, this isn't some dramatic farewell. You're part of us forever. It's not like you've got anywhere else to be when the holidays roll around. Laughter rolled through the room again, mocking, gleeful, familiar. I caught a glimpse of Aunt Diane raising her phone, snapping a photo of me mid-silence. I could almost imagine the caption she'd type later. Feeling grateful for my success when I see how others live. Without another word, I reached for my phone beneath the table and typed a brief message to my lawyer. Execute Order 30. We'd been preparing for this moment for months, carefully, patiently. My 30th birthday had felt like poetic timing. That phrase, Order 30, was the trigger for a full shutdown. Every secret payment halted, every hidden ownership unveiled. The truth was about to surface, and every illusion they'd lived under would crumble. "What's wrong, Rachel?" Olivia sneered, noticing my phone. "Checking if your landlord texted about rent again? I could help. You know, a friend of mine's looking for a roommate. Might ease your financial struggles." I smiled faintly and stood. "That's generous of you," I said, my tone calm and steady. "But I'll manage just fine." "Where are you off to?" she asked. "We haven't even brought out the cake yet." "I'm exhausted," I replied honestly. "But thank you, everyone. Tonight's been enlightening." Their laughter followed me as I walked away, ringing through the expensive room I'd unknowingly paid for, echoing off the walls of a celebration built entirely on my money. They toasted their success, never realizing they'd been drinking to the end of their golden age. Morning arrived quickly. After leaving Westbrook House, I returned home drained but more certain than ever. My so-called studio apartment, the one they mocked endlessly, was, in truth, the penthouse of a building I owned. Its modest appearance was a disguise I'd carefully crafted, a shield against their greed. At 8:47 a.m., my phone began to buzz on the counter. Olivia's name flashed across the screen. I ignored it. Again at 8:48, then 8:52. By the fourth call at 8:56, I finally answered. "What did you do?" she shrieked, panic strangling her voice. "Good morning to you, too," I said, sipping my coffee and gazing out over Central Park. "You sound upset." "What's the matter?" "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "The lawyer, the trust fund, it's gone." "What trust fund?" I asked lightly, letting confusion color my tone. "The one from Grandma. The one that's been paying out $50,000 a month. It just stopped overnight." "How odd," I replied calmly. "Grandma's estate was closed years ago. She didn't have much to leave, just a few thousand, if I recall. You even made a big scene about it at the funeral, remember?" But I've been receiving payments for years," she stammered. "They said it came from her estate." "Then there must be some kind of mix-up," I said. "Maybe give the law firm a call." "I did," she said quickly. "They told me to speak to the benefactor, the anonymous one. They said the funds have been redirected." "Anonymous benefactor?" I asked, feigning astonishment. "You mean you've been accepting $50,000 a month from a stranger without asking where it came from?" Silence. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, struggling to piece it all together. It must be from the family," she said weakly. "Our parents," I reminded her gently. "They left everything to charity. You were quite vocal about how selfish that was, remember?" "That's what they told us," she muttered. But what?" I pressed softly. "You just assumed there was a secret fund somewhere? That money would appear magically in your account forever." "I earned it," she snapped suddenly. "Through my business?" "Your business," I interrupted. "You mean the one that's never turned a profit? The one that somehow survives despite losing money every quarter? How exactly does that work, Olivia?" Silence again. And then, finally, the moment I'd been waiting for. "It was you." Her voice was so faint I almost missed it. "I don't know what you're talking about," I replied calmly. "I'm just the broke renter who collects dusty manuscripts, remember? How could I possibly afford all that?" "But if it was you," she stammered, why? Why would you give us money and never tell anyone?" I exhaled slowly. "If we're speaking hypothetically," I said, "maybe someone wanted to find out if their family could care about them without a price tag attached. Maybe they wanted to know whether love could exist without money involved." "But we didn't know," she whispered. "Exactly," I said softly. You didn't know. And when you assumed I had nothing, you treated me like nothing. You threw a party just to mock me, took pictures to share my humiliation, toasted to my so-called failure. Rachel, please. The amusing part, I continued, my voice steadying with every word, is that I kept hoping, 5 years of silent generosity, and still hoped that maybe one of you would show kindness, that maybe someone would defend me, invite me in, or just treat me like family instead of a punchline. We can fix this, she said frantically. We can change. Your business loan's due next month, isn't it? I asked evenly. $3 million, the one you've been barely covering because you assumed the trust fund would always save you. Her breath caught. How do you even know about that? I know about everyone's secrets, Olivia, I said. Uncle Frank's mortgage on that house he can't afford. Kyle's investor deals that he's been sustaining through trust fund payouts. Aunt Diane's boutique that never turned a profit but somehow still operates. You've been spying on us? She whispered, horrified. I've been protecting you, I corrected. For 5 years, I've been the unseen net keeping all of you from collapsing. And what did I get in exchange? Laughter, insults, contempt. We'll pay you back, she said weakly. With what? I asked. You don't have anything. You've all been living off my charity while telling me I'm worthless. My phone buzzed again and again. Frank, Kyle, Diane, the panic spreading like wildfire. The apartment you live in, I added quietly. The one with the unbelievably low rent? It's mine. I own that building. And the car you drive? I hold the lease, she began to sob. Please stop. Why? I asked coldly. Is this uncomfortable for you? Do you feel small now? Good. That's been my life at every family gathering for the last 5 years. What do you want? She pleaded, voice trembling with desperation. Nothing, I said simply. That's the irony, isn't it? I never wanted your money or your gratitude. All I ever wanted was a family who loved me for who I was, not for what I could give them. We do love you, she insisted through tears. No, I said quietly. You love the illusion of being better than me. You love having someone beneath you, someone who makes you feel successful in comparison. That's not true, she said weakly. Then tell me, I said, my voice cutting through her sobs. In 5 years, did you ever invite me to anything that wasn't just another opportunity to humiliate me? Did you ever have a conversation with me that didn't involve pointing out how I'd supposedly failed? You even took pictures of my pain and called it entertainment. She was crying openly now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. I believe that you're sorry, I said softly. But only because the money's gone, not because of what you did to me. That's not, tell me one real thing you know about me, I interrupted. Something that doesn't involve money or status. What's my favorite book? How do I spend my weekends? What actually makes me happy? The silence that followed said everything. Exactly, I murmured. Please, she begged, barely audible. We'll lose everything. You'll lose everything you never earned, I said. And there's a very big difference. But we're family, are we? I asked quietly. Because real family understands one another. Real family stands beside you. Real family doesn't spend 5 years turning one of their own into the joke of every gathering. The doorbell rang before I could say more. I wasn't surprised. Olivia must have come straight over the second she realized I wouldn't bend during the call. I'm guessing you found my address, I said before ending the conversation. It's listed in our parents' estate records. You're probably flipping through them right now. When I opened the door, she wasn't alone. Uncle Frank stood there beside her, along with Kyle and 3 cousins. Clearly, they'd organized a family intervention. Rachel, Uncle Frank began, his usual booming, whiskey-smooth tone now trembling. We need to talk. By all means, I said, stepping aside. Welcome to my miserable little apartment. They shuffled in, then froze. The modest studio they'd mocked for years opened into a vast, sunlit penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Central Park, and shelves of preserved manuscripts glowed under temperature-controlled lights. The walls were adorned with priceless artwork, and the marble floors reflected the city skyline. The silence was delicious. How, Kyle finally whispered, his eyes wide as they scanned the room. Dad was far shrewder than any of you realized, I said evenly. And Mom's collection, turns out first editions by Virginia Woolf and signed Hemingways are worth more than most people's houses. Olivia's voice came out small, choked. But you never said anything. I tried, I reminded her. Remember Christmas 3 years ago? I mentioned I'd made a few solid investments. Olivia looked down. You mean when I joked about lottery tickets? I nodded. And 2 years ago at Thanksgiving, I offered to help with Uncle Frank's mortgage. He laughed and said he didn't need charity from someone who couldn't even afford a car. I didn't know, Frank muttered weakly. Because none of you ever asked, I said sharply. You never wanted to know. You just assumed, judged, and ridiculed. So what happens now? Olivia asked quietly, sinking into my Italian leather couch. You just cut us off? Let everything fall apart? I'm not doing anything, I replied. I'm simply stepping out of the role you forced me into. You're all grown adults. You'll figure it out. Or you won't. But we're family, she repeated softly, as if the word could still save her. Then act like it, I said. Learn something about me that isn't tied to your ego. Ask about my work, the real work I do, not the version you've mocked to feel superior. Remember my birthday without an app reminding you. Treat me like a person, not a punchline. Kyle hesitated. If we do that, will you— No, I interrupted. This isn't a trade. You don't get to suddenly act kind because the money's gone and expect me to reward you for it. That deal expired a long time ago? So we're just supposed to lose everything? Olivia whispered. You were supposed to learn what I've known all along, I said. How to live without a safety net. How to save, struggle, and earn. How to build something without leaning on the very person you despise. They left in silence, faces pale and eyes hollow. In the following weeks, I watched from a distance as their perfect little worlds unraveled. Olivia's fitness brand went under in less than a month. Uncle Frank was forced to sell his lavish house and rent a tiny studio, the kind he'd mocked me for living in. Kyle's tech company folded when he couldn't meet investor deadlines. Some found jobs for the first time in years. Others downsized, learning how to stretch paychecks instead of inheritances. And then something unexpected began to happen. About 6 months later, a text from Kyle appeared on my phone. Hey, I finally read that manuscript you archived last year, the one about resilience. I think I understand now why you love your work. A month after that, Aunt Diane sent a handwritten card. She didn't ask for money. She just wrote to say she'd started a job at a local library and thought of me often. One by one, messages began to come, not for help, but for connection, for conversation, for something real. Nearly a year after that infamous birthday dinner, Olivia asked to meet for coffee. Her treat, she insisted, even though I knew she was juggling 2 jobs to pay off her debts. She stirred her cup nervously. I've been thinking, she began softly, about what you asked me that day. What makes you happy? I waited. I think, you're happiest when you're surrounded by stories, she said. Not just in books, but in the lives behind them. I remember you used to tell me about the love notes people left in margins, the history hidden in pages. For the first time in years, she truly saw me. I'm not here for money, she added quickly. I just wanted to say I remember, and I'm sorry. Not for the money. For losing you? We'll never be what we once were. Too much damage remains. But we're rebuilding, slowly. Honestly, one genuine conversation at a time. The family that once mocked me for being a pathetic renter is finally learning what I always understood, that worth can't be measured in dollars. Success isn't about possessions, it's about character. Over time, each relationship took its own path. Uncle Frank found work as a financial advisor, teaching others about the very responsibility he once lacked. We exchange polite holiday cards now, nothing more. Some cousins reached out to reconnect, humbled and sincere. Others vanished completely, unable to face the reflection of who they'd been. Tyler moved across the country, started over, and sometimes writes me about his quieter, simpler life. And me? I still live here, surrounded by books and sunlight. Still cataloging stories and restoring manuscripts, still driving the same sensible car. Only now, when people ask what I do, I give them the honest answer. I preserve stories, those bound in pages and those written in people's lives, including my own. That birthday toast, to our pathetic sister who still rents, turned out to be strangely prophetic. I do still rent, in a way. I rent space in people's lives, only now they finally earn that space through respect, not entitlement. And that, I've learned, is worth more than every trust fund in the world.